Welcome to the Resonate podcast with Aideen. I am Aideen, Riada, and my guest today is Clare Kelly. And Clare is joining me from Ireland. She is a lady with a passion for bringing the power of intentions and intuition to life. I know Clare from actually doing mantra meditation in Ireland, and I'm so pleased to have you on the podcast today. Among many things, she has been a leader in tech, an executive coach, and the founder of the GoodIntentions practice. Now she's bringing the power of scent and smell together with her coaching sessions to empower powerful change. This has been an amazing journey you've been on, Claire. How did you find yourself doing what you're doing now?
Um, I don't know. I don't think I was a direct line from A to B. I couldn't do anything A to B. It would have to be all around the house.
Yeah.
It's probably easier to work backwards. So now as you said, I'm working with a very powerful sense of scent and combining that energy with coaching people into feelings that uplift them and help them in their life to bring change that they would like. So it's been very magical. I could talk about that in itself for a whole podcast. But how did I get to doing that? Before that, I was in Salesforce. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but I'm saying it anyway. It's a big tech company. And I was there for 8 years. And in there, I was, in the latter part of that, I was a people manager for years. But then I manifested, actually for real, using intentions and intuition, a role as a full-time life coach within the team that I was in, which was wonderful. I was part of layoffs there back in May, and that in and of itself has been a very interesting journey. Like lots of ups, some downs, but I always look for a very interesting journey anyway. Like I'm not in for the boring life, so it's given me a lot of freedom to have and do what I am now doing, and then really all of that coaching and the intentions and intuition work. And I've done family systems. I've done, I don't know, a million different courses. I'd say like yourself, Aideen, addicted to courses. But I love it. And really, a lot of that influence has been from my mum when she was alive. I grew up with a very spiritual lady because she was a nurse, but she also was a healer. So I was kind of grew up with lots of things like this, which I was very lucky. And then I've had wonderful teachers along the way. As we know, we did mantra meditation together, so great teachers there. But essentially, I've read many books about the power of manifesting, but more than that, bringing have creating your own life, the power to bring your own energy to a place where you can design what happens to you. I'm not God. I don't design the outcome, but I like to bring my energy to a place that it attracts great things in my life. And I basically use my life as an experiment. And I've many stories about how that works.
What was interesting was before we came on, you said that you'd even set an intention for today's podcast. And I was wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing that, because this is a great strategy that we can use before we do anything to set the tone for what it is we would like to see happen. And like you say, we don't always create, sometimes we get a better outcome than what we originally thought. And sometimes the outcome is a little off and not, it's no smooth road. I don't think anyone gets that. But you had set a beautiful intention, and I would love if you would read out some of that for our listeners, just to give them an idea of what you mean.
Yeah. So I am an addict of my own practice. I literally, before everything, write out with pen and paper my intention, or else in a voice note. So I do believe in voice. I think you do too.
Yes.
My intention, this is what I've written, my intention in sharing my story with Aideen today, of using my voice and other things, is that love enters as I speak, and that this frequency hopefully can uplift those who hear it. That divine guidance helps me share stories that will help others to find their own voices and to feel safe when speaking, regardless of the outcome. That we bring joy and love into the room with us, and that we have lots of fun together with about three exclamation marks.
So if you're listening, stay tuned because it's going to get even more fun as the podcast goes on. I absolutely love that, and intuition has played a huge part in me developing my business and growing my business, and making the changes that I've made in my business. Have you ever felt like your intuition gave you an insight that was like a little bit left of field? Like, have you ever been surprised what you've been guided to do next?
Um, yes, and that's to me one of the markers of intuition. It's not a voice that is just raised up, if the thoughts in your head. To me, because something so random and specific. Like, here's a very good example, right? And I call this, by the way, using IPS. So, that you have GPS, like
Yes.
for navigation. I especially use this on holidays. My intuition, and I've had many examples of it guiding me to places where I want. Like, I've had, like, it's just beyond brilliant what you can do with your intuition. But one example is, like, I was sitting in my kitchen. I just recently, well, about 4 years ago, bought a new house, and I was sitting there with hardly any furniture. And without having really thought about getting any sort of pet, out of the blue, and I mean out of the blue, I got this specific thought to look up kittens on Done Deal. And Done Deal is like an ads, like a classifieds, sort of site.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Look up kittens on Done Deal. That's like really specific. And so I did, because, like, to me, like, where the fuck has that come from? I'm sorry, I may curse, sorry. Apologies. Irish people just do that. We
I
don't
don't
mean any harm.
mind.
There's good intention in it, okay?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I looked up kittens on Dundeel on my phone, and at the very top, just posted literally 2 minutes before that, when I had the thought, was the cat that I now have in my house.
Oh my lord.
'Cause so yes, I've used it many times. I used it in Japan once when someone was joking. We were on a trip and they were like, "Oh, I wish I could find a Starbucks." And I was kind of joking, going, "Okay, I'm going to use my IPS." I was kind of joking. And then I did get a thought going, okay, we're in like a tube station and we're down below. And first of all, I give out to her for thinking about going to Starbucks in Japan. Secondly, then I was like, oh, it said I could see it. And I'm like, oh, I have to turn left and then left again. And it's just there. And I said it out loud and I went, well, feck it, let's go and see. And it was there.
Oh my lord, Claire, that's amazing.
So I really do. I am my own experiment.
Yeah.
And yeah, I believe in intentions. To me, intention is the call and intuition is the answer.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, because the one of the biggest turning points in my life was when I made a prayer to do more with music in my work, because I had already set up on my own working for myself, but it was all stuff I'd done years ago. I was image consulting and nutrition, and I had no passion for it anymore. And I just said, let next year be more to do with music. And 3 weeks later, a voice came into my head saying, do a singing workshop for adults. And it was the same thing. I did not want to hear it. It wasn't my idea. It wasn't. I was like, maybe I'll sing at weddings next year. I had my own
Yeah, yeah,
I had my own little idea what it was. So it was because it was different from what was already in my head. And it was
yeah.
different from what I thought it might be. And it was an answer to a question that I had already made. that's why I decided, right, well, there's no harm in testing that out. Like the way you said, well, let's go take a look,
Yeah.
go down that,
Yeah.
corridor. So I just took that one step at a time. And I did one singing workshop in February. Like, it still took me 2 months to do it after Christmas. I was at Christmas time that I
Yeah.
got the insight. But it was one of the best things I'd ever done. And I started trusting my intuition from that day on.
Amen, sister.
Mhm.
Yes.
What you just said there was the intention is
The call.
call and intuition is the answer.
Yeah.
So if someone isn't setting intentions, like, it's not that many people do that kind of thing. I mean, I know
Hmm.
you do obsessively, but
Yeah.
I love that about you. Are we just kind of like floating around randomly and, not getting anywhere just because we're not being specific enough?
It's a good way of putting it, and that's one aspect of it. But the simplest way I find of why I do it is because I am bringing my consciousness to light. I am bringing my awareness to the moment right now, to what I'm doing, and I am connecting to my body and all of me to bring alive a feeling. Not necessarily, to me it's less about writing a plan, like an outcome. It's not actually, when I so to give example, when I was wanting to buy a house, I I wasn't, my intention was more about, I imagined people coming to my house and the joy and the crack we were having at the kitchen table and dancing in my kitchen. And all of those things happened. So to me, the intention is more about the experience that comes out of you getting a thing, if it's a thing that you're asking for. You know what I mean? So what is the outcome of that?
I have to write that
Um,
down, Claire, because this is a different, right? You're not
mhm.
just going, I want a house with four walls and a nice, garden. You're saying what you want to experience within the house.
Yeah. And to me, I've said this before, I think, but I love it. It's so simple. Bruce Springsteen said this in his audiobook. I love Bruce Springsteen. Or he's got a Netflix series, I think he talked about it as well, that um, the formula for love and creativity and all things wonderful is 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah. We're more
And
than the kind of you put two people together, it ends up being way more than just two people in the same spot.
yeah, and the way he described that, I love it, because it's exactly what I'm doing when I'm bringing my conscious energy to setting an intention. I am asking myself what is left in the room. So, like, what's the extra one that both of those parties get because we've come together? And he explained it as when the guy who was the saxophonist, I can't remember his name, I always forget it, begins with a C. Somebody in the audience will know and they'll be shouting it at me right now, but I'm sorry. Um, but he always explained that when himself and the band were going around doing all the gigs everywhere, it was more like turn up, do the gig, go home. It was like a job. It was, you turn up and you do it. There wasn't much heart in it. But when he said this guy joined the band, it brought just I guess a va-va-voom to it, and he connected them all. They were bringing joy into what they were doing, and that joy then was left with people. And he said, that's what he said, is 1 + 1 = 3. When you're bringing that love, whatever name you want to put on that energy, but I believe it's the energy that we do call love. It has many names, like joy, passion, like, I don't know, love and dancing, whatever you like. But there's a positivity to it, in that people leave that experience uplifted, is the best way I could describe it. And the danger of not doing it for me in my life, and why I do set intentions, is if you're not bringing your awareness to what you're feeling and what you're thinking, and then your actions, you risk doing things from an energy of fear. So, and and to me, when something like we all know this, right? Let's say in the tech world, I was asked to create a report, and someone from above has passed down that task to somebody else, and they've gone, and they all start panicking, right? And everyone's like, and suddenly my boss is like, Claire, we need to create that report for the quarterly end results, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, firstly, I really hate creating reports. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why I got out of doing that stuff. But um, you can feel that motivation, that energy with that request, if that person hasn't taken the time to figure out why they're asking for that and what comes from that report, it gets passed on with panic and fear.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't create things, that like blows them up. Like, fear contracts energy, love opens it,
Yeah.
and yeah, so that's the best way I can explain it. So to me, if I want to create, if I want to, like Bruce Springsteen said, leave people in the room just going, oh, wow, wasn't that the best night ever? We had so much fun dancing. Like 1 + 1 = 3. I need to bring love into what I do. And to me, that's a conscious thing. You do, and you can do it moment by moment. But the danger is that if you don't bring your attention to it, you can go into autopilot and end up running off fear instead. And good things happen when you run from love and not fear. Not run from it. Use love and not fear. Yeah. Run from love, Claire.
Run to love. But it
Run
happened
to
to me
love.
very recently. I just had like a day of kind of, oh no, this isn't going well, right? I went
Mm,
downstairs. I was like, oh, and I even spoke to my mother-in-law, and I told her things just aren't, I just told her things weren't going well for me, whatever the moment that fear was. And I made a big plate of food and I put it all on a tray, and I was going upstairs to Mike. We tend to eat upstairs because we live with my mother-in-law, and we like to spend time, together. We watch TV, and we have our own little space there. So I was going upstairs, and the next thing it tripped up, and the soup went everywhere. And I was like, "Oh, this is because I was in fear." I was like, "That's okay. I get it. I get it. I need to
oh,
change my ways, because it does attract a different kind of energy." And things don't go
mm,
smoothly, but sometimes that makes you more fearful, and it kind of fuels the negative. But for me, I had that wake up call, and I was like, what do I normally do now when this happens? And then I have a certain, like you've got your strategies, I've got some
mm,
strategies that I use, that if I do them properly for a few days, I'm back on track. And I'm sure some of the listeners
mm.
have amazing strategies as well they're already using. But the thing
Yeah,
about it is, you can't forget to do those things. Like, you have to keep doing them. If they make you
yeah,
good and they keep you on track, don't forget to do them.
yeah.
And I'm glad
Yes,
you're obsessive
correct.
about it, because the good intention you read out for our podcast today was absolutely gorgeous. I love it.
Thank you. And there's something that I got. I love doing many different types of spiritual things, and because of the redundancy I was part of, I made conscious boundary. Well, not I'm lucky enough not to have too many people dependent on me, but maybe that's also unlucky in one way. But anyway, you know what I mean. I had a little bit of safety and time. It gave me time and money to enjoy the summer a bit, so it was great timing. But I got to do, amongst many great things, I went on an ayahuasca retreat in Spain,
Mm.
and I had some amazing, I suppose what you call it, insights, visions, all that kind of stuff. And one of them was about joy, and that was, it was kind of, this is deep, but sure, why not? I It's the idea that you bring love to things. You bring joy to things. You bring fear to things. You bring panic to things. And when I think of a feeling as a thing, I can talk to it and then invite it in to the moment that I'm in. And this is the kind of, I guess, a take away from one of those visions, was I was shown that the moment before I was born, and this is deep, and this is the type of coaching I do with people. I was shown a way, well, an energy to help bring people to that place before they were born, and to talk to themselves and feel the passion that they had to come into this life. And because to me, that's the greatest intention you could ever have and connect with is, and mine was a feeling of pure joy. And I mean pure joy. Like I saw my niece run to my dad, her granddad, about a month ago at home up in the north, and it was pure joy. Like she was shaking, like how excited she was to see my dad. She was just screeching. She's 2.5. She was just screeching, "Granddad!" And she ran through everybody at the party and just like shook with joy about how happy he was. And I'm like, oh, that is the feeling I'm talking about. And that is the feeling that I had. And it was even more than that before I chose to come into this life. And I kind of asked myself in it, what is your intention for this life? And whether you believe it or not, I answered myself. And it was that I want to bring this joy and help other people bring this joy into their lives and to feel it and to just blow the bloody doors off, like not just, fun, but what joy is. It was then a whole other thing about joy's best friend is sadness, and it showed me where joy came into my life and blah blah blah, and so many different things. But the reason I said that is it's a kind of a tool that I use now in order to bring a new feeling into a moment, a new energy. Is I say, "Hey love, come along. I'm asking you to be here now." And if I give space for that in my heart and I allow it to open up, it does. It just happens. I feel it. And that's what I put in the intention, is that the sharing of my story and what we talk about is that love enters as I speak. So like a guest coming into the podcast, you know what I mean? Love is there too. And I've brought a load of other friends if you want to ask. We'll see who they are too. Yeah.
Beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And how do your newest part of how you work with your coaching clients is bringing smell and the power of scent into your coaching sessions. Tell us a bit more about that, because that seems really unique and interesting.
Yeah. So like all things wonderful, it sort of organically happened because I feel I was in a wonderful state of freedom and play this summer. Like I said, I took time and I drove my 83-year-old dad. He said he would never go to Cork again, all the way from the north. And I said, "You will, Daddy, you're coming with me." So we went to Garnish Island, where he'd been 60 years before, and I got to see him have the banter. So that trip was amazing. We went all from Cork up the west coast, up through Kerry, and it was amazing. So I got to have fun also with my niece I decided to learn the banjo, and we went to Willie Clancy, and my sister has told me now that has changed her life, because she is now really into playing the fiddle, has got into a trad band. They're going to be traveling over Europe, and I'm like, wow, it's amazing what can happen.
Wow.
So, but also then from that, because most of the time, now I'm not going to say I was all the time, oh yay, life is great. You also like shit your pants, because you're like, oh, this money's going to run out, and what do I do with my life? But that's where I would be like, okay, love, I'm keeping in your energy, come into this moment. And the scent thing happened through keeping in that energy. And I have a wonderful friend called Patrice and her now husband, Pepe, who live in the wilds of West Cork. And they were getting married on their own land, and it was an amazing wedding. But she, we kind of had a bit of a session, because like anything, when you're planning something like that and you realize there's so much you have to do, God bless her, it was getting tough, right? So I basically do what I do with everyone, and I am getting to the scent part, right? But this is
Hmm.
where it came from. So when I was talking to her, I said, okay, imagine you are one of your guests, or your guest is leaving the wedding with someone they came with, right? They're driving away from your land and they're talking to each other. Imagine what they're talking about, and like what would you love them to be saying? And it's not necessarily specifically about what they're saying. It's when you start to think about that, you then you awaken a feeling in yourself of what that is. You know what I mean? So that's the little hack that I use with people. I'm giving away all my secrets, but is to get it's hard to force yourself into a good feeling place when you're not in it, right? You just like, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just invite love into the room, and I was feeling like shit 10 minutes ago, and now I feel great. No, there are things that you will find each person does themselves to make that happen. But in doing this with a lot of people and training people in tech land and speaking at all different things about this, the greatest moment for people when something good happens is when they share it with someone that they love. So this is my tip to people listening. If you're interested in what I'm talking about, whatever you're about to do, think, allow yourself to think just for yourself. There's no harm in wishful thinking, as they say.
Hmm.
There's not. Allow your imagination to imagine something good happening, and let's say it's you getting that job that you really want. Imagine coming home from, or finding out you've got the job, and ringing someone that you love and telling them about it. And the moment that you tell someone you love about something happening to you is, I honestly feel, it's one of the greatest moments of joy and love and great energy that you get in life. You know what I mean? I'm
Oh
sure,
yeah.
you know, this feeling, like,
I know
so I
this
like to
feeling because
trust
I was at
people.
a Robbie Williams concert and I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
But happened to have like work the following morning. I was actually had to, it wasn't even going to be in Ireland. I was flying off with, I worked as an airline stewardess. Some of you might know that. But I got to London and I was about to get on a flight to London. And I said to someone in the room, I was at Robbie Williams, but they didn't share that. It was almost like I had lost that moment of like excitement because I didn't get to talk to my friends about it as much as I wanted to straight afterwards. So there's a need and a kind of wish for connection.
Mm.
Um,
100%. 100%. And it's like that, like, what is that somebody says, happiness isn't real until it's shared. I think it's in a movie, I can't remember. Anyway, but there's something in the sharing of it. And I guess that's a lot of your work, is the expression of yourself, of your say, of whatever.
yeah.
So yeah, that connection is so powerful. And that moment of sharing that moment with someone you love is, like, to me, the ultimate, so it's like my own little hack to think of it. So yeah, I said that to Patrice, and she started to describe. And what you find is, it can be a little bit hard initially to think of a future moment or feeling or whatever. You can sort of start it based off, let's say you were doing it for going to the Robbie Williams concert, remembering a concert you went to before, or in this case, remembering a wedding you went to before, and what you were feeling and thinking as you walked away from it. So
Mm.
it's not as much about what somebody would be saying, it's more that you start to open your imagination to that something good could happen from it. And then you find that once you open that door of possibility, it just snowballs. I do, like, if you really do it, it just sort of snowballs. So anyway, Patrice had kindly shared her intention that she wanted people, and I love this, to have fearless joy at her wedding. I'm like, wow, what? I want to go to that wedding. And I was, so that was good. Um, Fearless joy. I'm like, wow. So I got off that call with her and I went, wait a minute. I know what I'm going to do. Because I really believe that there's one thing to keep a thought in your head about something, but there's another thing, as you know, to express it. It focuses that thought. It focuses that what you do with that thought and the action that comes from it. So writing it out, or like putting it in a thing. So I was actually already, I'd made a bracelet for a lady with her mantra on it after a session. But then I had an idea, it just came to me like intuition does, to make them a scent for their wedding, base, like filled with the energy of her intention. And I still have it because they're really good quality. It's all natural products
Hmm.
and essential oils. And I made 30 of them for the tables. And she also had bell tents where we were staying on her land, so they were in there too, and they were in the toilet. And then you could just see the moment when people were like, "Wait a minute, what's that?" And it said their name on it, and on the back it said Patrice's intention for the guests. And then they then they kept obviously one for themselves, and they give some to the top guests, and I got one too. And I remember visiting one of Patrice's friends, and she had it in her house. And I'm like, and she goes, I love that because when you smell it, you're right back into that moment. And then I was like, wait a minute, not all, like that was a nice gift, but I'm like, wait, there's something to using that power of the way that when you smell something, it awakens feelings in you. And I was like, this is brilliant. Okay, so if I get to talk to someone and help them express their intention, we create a scent, and then I usually will have a second session with the person to do like either a guided visualization or a meditation or whatever way works for that person, but to have them smell the scent whilst they are in this feeling good place of whatever it is that they want. So
Wow.
now that smell is associated to that feeling. And like it could be used by sports coaches. I shouldn't be saying that because it's probably a really cool idea. I should just do something with. But like if you were like a team and you wanted to, or you're doing the marathon and you're like going to give up one day and you're like, oh no, what am I going to do? Like if you just sent for, and it's like, what would you call it? Something like get up again or keep going, right?
Yeah.
And you talk about times where you've got up and you've kept going and what that felt like and the benefits it brought to your life, and now you're in that feeling place, you know it's possible. You then do a session with me and you associate that with that feeling, and now when you smell it you're like, whoa. And the olfactory, as I'm sure a lot of people listening know, like how powerful it is, and the science of it is kind of cool because then I discovered all that afterwards, where it like skips the what do you call it? This is where I'm
The
bad with the science
hippocampus.
part. The hippocampus, which is the more reasoning, logical side of things, and it goes straight into your limbic system. So that's why when you smell something, you're like right back, like in your granny's sitting room or whatever it is, because it just, I'm like, wait a minute, that is brilliant because that means that we won't lash on all of our thoughts and judgments about what we're doing. So I really feel like I've discovered something really powerful, and it's, yeah, I've used it myself in that ayahuasca retreat I was on, and every time I smell that, I am right back in that energy, and that in and of itself is so powerful. There's so many, I could tell you a million different ways I've used it since with people, and every time I am learning more uses for this. As
So
you can tell, I get very excited about
no, but
it.
it's so amazing because like our conscious mind comes back in with the reasons why, the logical reasons why maybe that you can't do it. So because a lot of our intentions there are things that haven't happened yet. They're things that we don't have any
Mm,
proof for. We may believe it's possible, but we haven't seen any evidence of it yet. And it's
yeah.
so easy then when you're having a bad day. And like, I feel like that myself some days and
Mm,
recently myself. And because you just get a little tired of doing what you're doing and you're not sure maybe what to do next. And it's in those
yeah.
moments that we need to be able to reconnect with that original intention. And if a smell or a scent can help us reconnect deeply with our original intention and the joy that that intention brought us.
Mm,
That literally, is magical. And I think you're right. I think you're really onto something here, Claire. Like, I think
Mm.
there's, yeah, if anybody who's listening, try to use it, but if the way that you're using it with your clients in your coaching practice, I suspect that they're getting like exponential results compared
Mm.
to before. Like, do you have a client in, story that you would be willing to share?
Yeah, yeah, because I've got consent from these people because I have the testimonials. Give you on my site, which is by the way clarekelly.ie, CLAREKELLY.ie. Anyway, yeah, there's like, for example, uh, this man, lovely man, bought a gift for his wife. What a great man. And I just thought, to be honest, that in and of itself, I was like, oh, what a legend you are. Um, this lady had been out of work for a while. Well, also she'd been doing the most amazing job rearing her children. But like anything, when you're out of work for a while or you're not doing it, it's your confidence will waver because you're just not using that tool. And he basically said, Claire, I know you're good at uplifting people. And what he's like, I don't know what the scent thing is that you're doing, but I'm sure she'll like it. I'm like, cool. um, so yeah, so the initial session is online, right? I do a lot of my work online. I can do it in person, like I live in Bray and Wicklow, and I'm going to be doing workshops in Carlow in the centre that we were in, Aideen,
Oh,
in
wonderful. Yeah, let me know
February.
when that's happening because I love that venue and I can definitely tell people about it.
Great. I have to decide the date myself, but I'm feeling February at the moment. But yeah, so essentially I worked with her. Really like what I was talking about earlier. I like, if the best thing could happen, just for a moment, come with me on a journey where you actually are in a job that you like. And it can take a little while to get into that zone, like you're saying. It's like when you start pedaling a bike. Initially, it's hard to push the pedals. Uh, but because I'm there asking you, it kind of makes you a little bit. That's why having a coach or someone to help you reflect and express and connect to is so powerful than just trying to figure it all out on your own. But she was started to share. I asked her, things about a job she might have loved before, or, parts of her job where she felt like she was really good at it, but also she liked doing it. Because to me, that is what a strength is. You can be good at stuff, but you also don't like doing it. And if you can avoid those things as much as possible, or minimize or delegate those things, you're onto a winner in your career. So anyway, I said to her, yeah, so remember those. And she was telling me a few things. And then we did a bit of a session, a guided thing. And then I got her to do an exercise. So I will ask people to do things because to me, if it's just me writing your intention, that's not, I think that's BS, to be honest.
Yeah.
I will ask people to work hard for their money. You know what I mean? Because that's the idea. The idea is that you make an energy come to life. I'm there to help be a catalyst for that. But if you don't put the time and effort into writing that, so sometimes I got her to write out a story from her future self talking about what she loved about her job she's been in for a couple of years. And she sent it to me, and she's like, "Is that the right way to do it?" And I read it, and I was like, "Yes." And by the way, there's no wrong way of doing it. Like, unless you're writing something about causing someone pain and
Yeah.
harm, then I'll go after you. But like, there is no wrong way to do it. It's your energy. It's your manifesto, whatever you want to call it. So when she sent that to me, then I read that out to myself as I create the scent.
Wow.
And because I do believe in creating like a sacredness around the work that I do. Even though I'm really into technology, I studied product design and I worked in tech companies and IT and all that jazz. But that's a tool, the same as people in, I guess, certain religions or sort of artistries have certain tools like incense, in the church. Why do they do that? Or why did the people in Lidl, or do you remember Cuisine de France when they started baking bread in the shops? Do you
Hmm.
remember that smell? You
Yeah.
know, so there's all these tools that people in these wise organizations have used for many years that I am like, I'm tapping into that technology. That's a technology. And so this scent thing is part of that technology. So when I'm creating the scent, it is really important for me to take it with, I would say seriousness, but like focus and energy. So it's the most personalized gift you could ever give yourself because you've put your energy into it. I then literally spend about 3 hours um, where I will, if there's anything for me to add to that on top, through my intuition, I work through my intuition
Hmm.
to pick scents. And my mom was a aromatherapist, and I've studied emotional essential oils, which is cool, where it ties essential oils to emotions. But I actually use my intuition through and a pendulum. If anyone's ever used one of those, my mom used to use it for everything, and I mean everything. Like, how many drops of this? I was like, Mom, it's gonna take you forever. But I am now doing the same thing. It's so funny. Um, so I will make sure that I will make that energy come to life. I will play. If you've sent me as a voice note, it's even more powerful, as you know, the energy in the voice comes through. So my sister, when she wanted a scent for a retreat that she was going on, she recorded it as a voice note. It was only a couple of minutes long, but it was a really clear intention for certain feelings like courage and tenderness, and like it can be as simple as that, but that's powerful too. And then I actually use everything. This is going to sound a bit nuts, but I play a certain frequency. So I will pick, there are certain, I love sound myself, and there are certain frequencies called this, I have to say this right now,
Oh,
solfeggio.
solfeggio. Yes, I know those.
Solfeggio, is that how you actually say it?
Solfeggio.
I don't know.
Yeah. And you use tuning forks for that, Claire.
Yes. So I have one for each. They have certain frequencies for certain chakras. And depending on the energy, again, I will use my intuition or the pendulum to pick one of those frequencies. So it may be, so I have a scent that I have four pre made scents, by the way, for common things that people will want in
They
their
can get that on
lives.
your website, can't they?
They can, yeah, yeah. And
But
like
I'm
I have
still
one for
you're doing a very you're doing the walk around the house a million times before you come back to the lady who hasn't worked in forever and
oh, yeah, sorry.
come back to that because I
Yes,
really want to make sure that we understand the value of it rather
yes.
and we only have a few more minutes actually. I want to wind things up, and so
Okay.
I'd love to come back to that, Claire, so that we
Yes.
can hear her story because I thought that was just fabulous. I'm really like you have me on tender hooks here going, well,
I
tell
know.
me,
Sorry. Drum roll, please. I so essentially I made the scent with all of that stuff I was talking about, and then I posted to her, and then we did a session where I guided her through that experience, and she read her letter out loud, etc., etc. Then, literally, she had already been applying for jobs, but she got a job a week later.
what? And this is a lady who hadn't been working since she'd had children. So, like, it was probably a
Yeah,
decade or more since she'd worked.
yeah. So when I say this stuff is powerful, it's powerful, but it's as powerful as the energy that you make come to life in it. I will help you for
Mhm.
sure. But there is a magic that comes alive when you put energy into what you do. And that's essentially what I'm doing with people.
It's unbelievable, Claire. Like, I am just like, when can you book me in?
Yes.
We'll talk about that afterwards, but I just want to suggest to everybody listening to find Claire she's on Facebook. I think you're on Instagram as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I am Clare Kelly is on
Yeah,
Instagram.
and I'll be sharing those links in the show notes because Claire is a lady to watch. And if you are anyway interested in, supercharging your intentions with scent, then Claire is your woman. I mean, this is a completely unique way of anchoring what you want so that when you feel like you can't do it anymore, you can come back to that feeling of this is possible and this is what I'm creating in my life. And I just think that's beautiful.
Tis magic. I don't know about you, but it's a kind of a cool technology, and I am into technologies, but like spiritual technologies. Um, I'm like, screw AI. Well, that is good, but I'm talking about, what would you call it?
Yeah.
Ascended intelligence, not all AI, but ascended intelligence. There you
That's
go.
a good way to put it. And I think, we could talk about AI for another 10 minutes, but I think with all of the technology work, we have to become more discerning about where really powerful, positive energies are. And you can tell those things from listening to someone's voice. You can get a vibe from someone. You can see it in a painting. So you can tell the difference between a painting that was painted by someone, with intention, or it was just created by AI. There's a vibrational difference. And I think we're being challenged now to be more discerning on those things,
Yeah.
as technology comes up with all these new, you know, um, ways that we can use it. But before we go on another tangent, Claire, let me wind us up, okay? If that's okay with you.
100%.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you so much to everyone who's been listening. It's been an absolute joy. I've been making notes here myself, and I hope you have been too. And please follow Claire. And thank you for listening. And let us know your insights. If you'd like to get in touch with either of us, we would love to hear from you. Thanks again from the Resonate podcast with Aideen and my guest, Clare Kelly. Take care and goodbye.